between the Hells Angel and a rival gang may have been in retaliation for murder.
Members of the Hells Angels
and police investigating the Hells Angels
and hoping that this will wipe out the entire organization.
In the shadowy world of organized crime, few names strike as much fear and intrigue as Necati Arabaci, a former member of the notorious Hells Angels. He's a man whose reputation is built on violence, manipulation, and underworld deals. But what happens when a ruthless criminal gains celebrity status, even becoming a viral sensation on TikTok? In this video, we're diving into the brutal life of Necati Arabaci, from his dark past to his shocking reappearance in Monaco. Ready to uncover the truth behind the puppet master of the underworld? Let's go. In the gritty world of organized crime, where loyalty and power are the currency, Necati Arabaci made a name for himself as one of the most feared figures. Born in Turkey, he soon found himself entangled in the dark underbelly of Europe, moving to Germany and falling into the orbit of the notorious Hells Angels motorcycle club. For those unfamiliar with the Hells Angels, they're not just a bunch of leather jackets and motorbikes. They are a global crime syndicate with their hands in everything from drug trafficking to human exploitation. Necati wasn't just any member. He quickly climbed the ranks to become a high-ranking boss, feared not only for his connection to the Angels, but also for his ruthless tactics. He was involved in a string of serious crimes. The man had no fear, and his ability to manipulate situations for his advantage made him a key figure in the criminal world. If you crossed him, you'd better watch your back. His rise was as swift as it was brutal, but it wasn't just his criminal activities that made Necati stand out. He quickly became a symbol of the dangerous allure that comes with power and wealth in the criminal world. Cars, cash, expensive clothes. Necati seemed to have it all, and he wasn't shy about showing it off. It wasn't just about the money for him, though. It was the control, the fear, and the respect he demanded that truly mattered. Necati's rise wasn't just a product of his ties to the Hells Angels, but also his raw ability to play the game. Now, you might be wondering, how does a man like this even get started in this kind of world? Well, the road to power for Arabaci wasn't paved with gold. It was paved with violence, betrayal, and shady dealings. But the question remains, how did a man like Necati Arabaci go from being a small-time player to becoming one of the biggest puppet masters in the European underworld? Let's take a closer look at how he built his empire and became the man everyone feared. By the time Necati Arabaci became a household name in the criminal world, he had already built a criminal empire that spanned countries. It wasn't just the Hells Angels that gave him his power. It was his unflinching control over illegal businesses that earned him respect and fear. His name became synonymous with brothels, extortion, and trafficking in Germany, but he didn't stop there. His operations spread to other parts of Europe. Necati's world was one where loyalty could be bought and sold, where anyone could be manipulated with the right amount of pressure, and where violence was a means to an end. While others in the Hells Angels dealt in drugs or arms, Necati found his niche in the world of human exploitation. Pimping, sex trafficking, and running illegal brothels made him an unholy amount of money. But it wasn't just about the cash. He was a master at controlling people. Running these operations meant wielding power over vulnerable individuals, using fear and coercion to ensure his empire thrived. Behind the scenes, Necati ran a tight operation. He was calculating, always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of anyone who might try to challenge him. If someone owed him money, they'd better pay up, or there would be consequences. If someone tried to betray him, their life was in danger. And yet, despite his cruelty, there was a certain admiration for how smoothly his criminal empire ran. He wasn't just feared, he was respected for the way he held things together. It wasn't just small-time criminals who worked for him. Necati had connections at every level of society, from lowly street thugs to high-ranking officials. In the world of organized crime, having the right connections could mean the difference between life and death, and Necati knew this well. He played the game like a seasoned pro, bending people to his will while building an empire that seemed untouchable. But even the most powerful criminals make mistakes, and Necati's time at the top would eventually come to an end. But how did the king of the underworld go from running a multi-million-dollar criminal empire to being hunted by international law enforcement? The answer lies in the fallout of his crimes and the high price of power. As powerful as Necati Arabaci was, his criminal activities eventually caught up with him. After years of operating under the radar, his empire began to crumble when law enforcement took notice. His connection to the Hells Angels, alongside his involvement in organized crime across Europe, made him a prime target for police forces. Interpol, the global policing network, had been after him for years, but it wasn't until 2004 that he finally faced serious consequences. The authorities closed in on Necati during a series of high-profile operations aimed at dismantling organized crime rings. In one of the most intense moments of his downfall, he was arrested in Germany and sentenced to prison for his involvement in human trafficking and pimping. But even behind bars, Necati wasn't out of the game. He continued to wield power, using his connections to maintain influence over his criminal network. It became clear that even imprisonment couldn't fully restrain his reach. But the real blow to Necati's criminal life came when he was deported back to Turkey after serving his sentence. Instead of being out of the picture, this move seemed to reignite his power. While many criminals would have stayed out of sight, Necati returned with a vengeance, this time operating more discreetly, but still as dangerous as ever. His return to Turkey marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where he would continue his operations with a network of loyal associates and a reputation that demanded respect. Though his empire had taken a hit, Necati's resilience and ability to stay under the radar kept him in the game. But what would happen next? Would he continue to build his influence, or would the long arm of the law finally catch up with him? After being deported to Turkey, many assumed Necati Arabaci would lay low, hidden away from the eyes of the law. But as we all know, the world of organized crime doesn't let you escape that easily. While Necati might have been forced to leave Germany, he quickly adapted and began establishing new connections in Turkey. But his most audacious move came when he reappeared in Monaco. Monaco, with its glamorous lifestyle and tight-knit, affluent community, was the last place you'd expect to find a criminal like Necati. But for him, it was the perfect setting to rebuild his empire. He was no longer just a member of the Hells Angels. He had morphed into a symbol of the outlaw lifestyle, flaunting his wealth and power, much to the fascination of the public. And of course, what better place to show off the fruits of years of illicit dealings than the sun-drenched streets of Monaco, right? In fact, Necati's reemergence in Monaco has been nothing short of a spectacle. His flashy lifestyle, including luxury cars and high-end real estate, quickly caught the attention of the media, but also social media platforms like TikTok. As strange as it might sound, his extravagant lifestyle has made him a star, celebrated by many for his wealth and charisma, while others have called him a symbol of criminal glamour. The bad boy image, mixed with money, power, and notoriety, makes him irresistible to those who view criminals as anti-heroes. But while some people might see Necati as a celebrity, those who understand the darker side of his story know he's not just a flashy figure enjoying life in the lap of luxury. Behind the scenes, he's still connected to a criminal network, and his reappearance in Monaco is more than just a return to the spotlight. It's part of his continued quest to solidify his power and control, this time on a more international level. The question is, how has Necati managed to maintain his criminal influence and evade the law after all these years? How does someone so deeply entrenched in the underworld manage to stay ahead of the authorities? It all comes down to his ability to play the game of cat and mouse, always keeping one step ahead. But things aren't as smooth as they seem, and the cracks in his facade are starting to show. Necati Arabaci's return to Monaco wasn't just about laying low and hiding away from law enforcement. It marked the beginning of something even more unexpected, his rise to a sort of criminal celebrity status. It's almost bizarre to think that a man with a trail of criminal activities spanning across Europe, who's been involved in everything from trafficking to running brothels, would find a second life as an influencer of sorts. Yet, that's exactly what happened. Monaco, the glittering playground for the rich and famous, seemed to be the perfect setting for Necati to embrace this newfound fame. He wasn't just a shadowy figure in the criminal world anymore. He was becoming something more, an icon, albeit a controversial one. Flashy cars, luxurious apartments, and a lifestyle that many only dream of. Necati began to flaunt all of this on social media, making sure the world knew that the years spent behind bars hadn't slowed him down. Necati Arabaci's reach didn't stop at the high society of Monaco or the gritty backstreets of Germany. His criminal operations spanned continents, leaving a trail of illicit businesses and underworld connections. What makes Necati's story even more chilling is the scale of his operations. He wasn't just a local thug or even a European crime boss. No, Necati was part of a larger, more dangerous global web of organized crime, one that connected Europe, Asia, and beyond. One of the most disturbing aspects of Necati's empire was his ability to establish and maintain a network that transcended borders. While many criminals operate within the confines of a single country, Necati used his connections to expand internationally. His base in Turkey gave him an advantage, allowing him to orchestrate criminal activities without the immediate threat of European law enforcement closing in. This network wasn't just built on violence and intimidation. It was built on trust in the fact that Necati could always deliver results, no matter the cost. His operations, ranging from human trafficking to drug smuggling, weren't just limited to a few shady businesses. Arabaci was deeply embedded in networks that stretched across various industries. From brothels to smuggling rings, he played a key role in ensuring his network operated smoothly. But as his web expanded, so did the risk. Despite his careful planning, Necati couldn't keep every thread from unraveling. Criminal empires often rise and fall, and for every deal made in the shadows, there's always someone waiting to take it all down. The real question is, how much longer can Necati continue to control this vast empire? As his name spreads across borders, law enforcement agencies across the world are tightening the noose. But as we've seen time and time again, criminals like Necati always find a way to adapt, to outsmart the system and remain elusive. The world of organized crime is as much about staying ahead of the game as it is about brute force. And for now, Necati Arabaci seems to have mastered that game. So, who exactly is Necati Arabaci when you strip away the flashy cars, luxury homes, and the criminal empire? Behind the myth of the powerful gangster is a man who grew up in a world far from the gleaming lights of Monaco. His rise to power didn't happen overnight. It was built on years of cunning, manipulation, and violence. Unlike many of his peers, Necati was always more than just a street thug. He was strategic, thinking several moves ahead, always making sure that he was in control. The fact that Necati has managed to maintain his empire for so long is a testament to his intelligence. He understands how to build alliances, how to use fear to his advantage, and how to stay one step ahead of law enforcement. What's most chilling, however, is how he manages to blend into the upper echelons of society, even though he's built his fortune on crime. He's a man who knows how to play both sides, keeping his foot in the criminal world while keeping his public image pristine enough to be accepted by Monaco's elite. But for all the money, power, and respect that Necati has earned, it's impossible to ignore the dark side of his personality. Behind that polished exterior, there's a ruthless, calculating individual who will stop at nothing to maintain control. His charm and charisma have helped him create an image of the bad boy people can't resist. But it's all part of the game. The question we're left with is, how long can Necati keep up this double life before the cracks start showing? And when they do, will he still be able to manipulate his way out of trouble? Or will his empire finally crumble? Only time will tell. As we stand on the edge of this saga, it's hard not to wonder, what's next for Necati Arabaci? Is he simply going to keep running his operations in the shadows, enjoying the spoils of his years of crime? Or will the relentless pursuit of law enforcement finally bring him down? Necati is a man who has managed to avoid capture time and time again. Despite his criminal past, despite his high-profile appearances, he's somehow stayed out of the long arm of the law. Until now, that is. The criminal world is changing. Technology has shifted the way gangs operate, and international law enforcement is more connected than ever. Interpol and national police forces are not as easily outwitted as they once were. The question we need to ask is, how long can someone like Necati Arabaci maintain control of his empire in an era where surveillance, intelligence sharing, and cooperation between agencies are the norm? His time in Monaco, for example, could be coming to an end. The media might love his larger-than-life persona, but the authorities are definitely not as enamored. When someone of his caliber starts to attract too much attention, it becomes increasingly difficult to stay invisible. Necati has certainly managed to fly under the radar for a long time, but the more popular he becomes in the public eye, the more of a target he becomes for the law. And let's not forget his criminal associates. Necati has built alliances over the years, but loyalty in the world of organized crime is as fleeting as it is dangerous. As his power and notoriety grow, so do the threats from rivals within the underworld. Criminal empires are fragile things, built on trust but easily destroyed by betrayal. It's not hard to imagine someone taking a shot at him, or even a power struggle within his own ranks. The world he's built is constantly at risk of imploding, as is the case with so many before him. Necati, however, is no stranger to risk. In fact, it's part of the reason he's been so successful in the first place. But as his empire grows and his fame spreads, the chances of slipping up only increase. The question that now lingers in the air is, will Necati become another cautionary tale of the underworld? Or will he somehow manage to escape the inevitable downfall that catches up with so many criminals? While there is no definitive answer, what's clear is that Necati Arabaci's story is far from over. Whether it ends in a dramatic takedown by the authorities or a smooth exit from the criminal world, one thing is certain. He's managed to stay relevant in a world that constantly shifts beneath his feet. And while we might be left wondering about his future, what's certain is that Necati Arabaci will remain a figure of fascination, fear, and intrigue in the years to come. The underworld has a way of producing figures who don't easily fade into history, and Necati is one of those figures. His story, however it ends, will leave a lasting impact, one that will echo in the darker corners of organized crime for a long time. As we come to the end of this journey, it's impossible not to reflect on the legacy that Necati Arabaci has built for himself. His rise from a minor figure in the criminal world to one of the most well-known names in organized crime, his rise from a shadowy existence into a celebrity figure, has been nothing short of fascinating. And despite the dark path he's taken, there's a strange allure to his story, one that draws people in and makes them want to know more. The man who spent years evading the law, playing both sides of the game, is now as notorious as he is famous. Whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny the impact Necati Arabaci has had. There's something almost poetic about the way Necati has managed to outlast others in the underworld. The men who started with him, those who once shared his rise, have either been taken down by rival gangs, arrested, or simply faded into the shadows. But Necati, he's still here. He's not just surviving, he's thriving even. His ability to reinvent himself, to adapt to new circumstances, to use the media, and even social platforms like TikTok to build a persona around his name, is a rare trait in the criminal world. Criminals tend to operate in the shadows, careful not to attract attention. Yet Necati, despite his violent past, seems to embrace the spotlight. He's made himself a brand, a figure of controversy, one that the public cannot help but talk about. The truth is, no one can stay at the top forever. Criminal empires, no matter how well planned, are fragile. They're built on secrecy, on trust, and on the ability to outsmart everyone around them. But trust is always fleeting in the criminal world, and sooner or later, someone betrays you. Whether it's a rival gang, an informant, or simply a bad decision, the collapse of an empire like Necati's is inevitable. It's the nature of the business, but what makes Necati's legacy so interesting is how he's managed to remain an icon even in the face of that impending downfall. He's become a symbol of the underworld, a figure that people both fear and admire. In a world where crime and power are often intertwined, Necati has shown just how far someone can go when they have the right combination of intelligence, charisma, and ruthlessness. His life is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the allure and danger of the criminal world. But it's also a story of survival, a story of a man who spent his life defying the odds, rewriting the rules, and coming out on top time and time again. But what will the future hold for Necati? Will he continue to outsmart the authorities, or will his story end in a dramatic fall from grace? Will he leave a lasting legacy as one of the most infamous criminals of our time? Or will his empire crumble beneath him, just like those of so many before him? No matter how it plays out, one thing is clear. Necati Arabaci will never be forgotten. His name will live on, not just in the criminal world, but in the public consciousness as well. He has managed to carve out a place for himself in history, not just as a criminal, but as a cultural figure. The world has seen many gangsters come and go, but few have managed to capture the attention of the masses in the same way that Necati has. Whether you admire him, fear him, or despise him, his story is one that will continue to intrigue and captivate for years to come.